Russia.
The lights in Moscow burned brighter than ever on that March night. The stage was set inside the Kodinka Ice Palace, where thousands of eyes locked on the squared circle, waiting for a champion to make his return. Artur Beterbiev, the Russian destroyer, the reigning and undefeated light heavyweight champion of the world, was walking back into the ring after over a year of frustration, injuries, delays, and even a battle with COVID had kept him sidelined. His aura of invincibility was intact, but the world was eager to know if time and circumstance had dulled the edge of boxing's most feared knockout artist. Across from him stood Deines of Germany, a late replacement. A challenger few expected to win, but one who carried no fear, no hesitation, and the hunger of a man with nothing to lose. Beterbiev was already a legend in the making. His reputation carved from 15 straight wins, every single one ending before the final bell. There were no decisions, no debates, only destruction. Every man who had stood in front of him had been broken down, outpunched, and left behind. Yet as he entered the ring in Moscow, there lingered the question of whether the long layoff and the shadows of injury had chipped away at his dominance. Deines, by contrast, was the embodiment of defiance. Born in Russia but representing Germany, he had worked his way to this moment not with glittering records or superstar acclaim, but with resilience and persistence. Few gave him a chance, but sometimes in boxing, being the underdog gives you a freedom the favorite doesn't have, the freedom to fight with nothing to protect. The opening bell rang and the two men came forward, each with their stories written on their gloves. Beterbiev, as expected, marched straight to the center, eyes locked, shoulders rolling forward like a man about to impose his will. Deines circled, touched with the jab, and tried to make himself mobile, refusing to be a stationary target. The champion was patient in those opening exchanges, testing the timing, letting the right hand find its range. Deines, sharper than many had expected, managed to slip inside and land a counter left, a reminder that he was not there to fold at the first touch of power. Still, you could see the difference immediately. Beterbiev's shot sounded heavier, each connection thudding with the kind of force that vibrates through an arena. By the second round, the rhythm of the fight began to shift. Beterbiev had measured the distance, and now his jab was no longer a rangefinder, it was a weapon. He snapped Deines' head back with stiff leads, then dug downstairs with brutal right hands to the ribs. Deines tried to spin off the ropes, flicking combinations in return. But every exchange ended with the German being pushed backward, forced into the corners, trapped in that suffocating style that had defined Beterbiev's career. The power wasn't just in his punches, it was in his presence. He denied opponents the rest they needed, cutting off the ring until escape felt impossible. Still, Deines showed heart. In the third round, he let his hands go in flashes, sneaking a right down the middle, catching the champion's attention. It wasn't enough to hurt him, but it was enough to make the crowd murmur. For a brief moment, Deines looked alive, defiant against the storm. But as quickly as the hope appeared, it was battered down by the champion's reply. Beterbiev doubled up to the body, then ripped an uppercut through the guard, snapping Deines' head back with frightening precision. It wasn't just power, it was systematic cruelty, the kind of breakdown that wears on a fighter's spirit as much as his body. The fourth round was where the momentum felt irreversible. Beterbiev, calm and calculating, began mixing in angles, stepping slightly to the side before unloading heavy hooks. A right hand downstairs froze Deines against the ropes, and the follow-up uppercut rocked his head back violently. The German was trapped, absorbing punishment, but still refusing to fall. His defiance won him the respect of the crowd. But the reality was becoming clear. This was a fight being fought on Beterbiev's terms, and those terms were brutal. The middle rounds told a story of survival. Deines, cornered more and more often, threw combinations not so much to win the exchanges, but to keep himself alive in them. He fought off the ropes, tried to circle out, and occasionally stitched together a three-punch sequence that landed clean. But Beterbiev was relentless. Every time Deines threw, the champion responded with heavier artillery, body shots that sank into the ribs, hooks that clipped the temple, and uppercuts that split the guard. The accumulation was visible. By the sixth round, Deines' face showed the marks of battle, reddened and swollen, but his will remained unbroken. The 7th and 8th rounds carried a strange tension. On one hand, Beterbiev was in complete control, dictating pace, space, and the exchanges. On the other, there was a question floating in the air. Would Deines somehow find a way to extend this fight, to drag the feared Russian knockout machine into deeper waters? For a man expected to be overwhelmed early, Deines had survived longer than most predicted, and with each passing round, that small victory grew. But Beterbiev is not a man who tolerates resistance for long. His shots grew sharper, his pressure more suffocating, and the crowd began to sense the end creeping closer. Then came the 9th. It began with Deines moving confidently, perhaps encouraged by the fact that he had weathered so much already. He circled, jabbed, and looked for openings. But Beterbiev had shifted into another gear. He cut the ring off with frightening efficiency, stepping in behind the jab and setting traps with his footwork. A right hand landed flush, followed by a left hook that sent shockwaves through Daines's body. The German staggered, his legs betraying the damage. Beterbiev, ruthless as ever, pressed forward, unloading with combinations that left no room to breathe. Another crushing left hook landed, and this time Deines had no escape. He collapsed to the canvas, the count rising over him as the champion loomed above. The referee waved it off, and the arena erupted. Once again, Artur Beterbiev had defended his crown. Once again, he had done so without the need for judges, and once again his perfect record of knockouts remained untarnished. Deines, brave and defiant, had given more resistance than many expected. But in the end, he had been another name added to the list of men broken by the Russian powerhouse. As Beterbiev's hand was raised, the questions about rust, about layoff, about age were all silenced. He was still the monster of the light heavyweight division. Still the man no opponent wanted to meet in the ring. Still the destroyer who walked through challengers with terrifying certainty. Deines walked away with pride in survival. But Beterbiev walked away with legacy intact, and the world once again whispered his name when discussing who truly rules the sport. The fight was more than just another knockout. It was a statement. Even after months of setbacks, even after the world wondered if he might be slipping, Artur Beterbiev showed the same ruthless efficiency that made him one of the most feared men in boxing. For Deines, it was the night he stood tall in the fire, refusing to quit until the very end. For Beterbiev, it was simply business as usual, the continuation of a perfect, devastating story. And now the questions that linger are the ones that always follow in the wake of dominance. Who dares to step in next? Who has the courage to test themselves against the man who has never been denied? And who, if anyone, can stand long enough to find out if Beterbiev is human after all? For boxing fans, fights like these remind us of the brutal beauty of the sport. A champion proving his power, a challenger showing his heart, and the clash between them creating a story that echoes far beyond the ropes. Artur Beterbiev versus Deines was not just a fight. It was a chapter in the saga of a destroyer's reign. So now we turn it over to you. What did you think of this fight? Did Deines impress you with his resilience, or was it always only a matter of time before Beterbiev broke him down? And looking ahead, who do you think can truly test the Russian champion's unbeaten streak? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe for more in-depth boxing storytelling, and join us as we continue to revisit the most dramatic moments the sport has to offer.